Hello and welcome back to Broken Antler Outdoors. In this video I want to talk about birch bark as a natural tinder material. Before I get started and show you how to collect this the best way, I first want to talk about some properties of this tinder. Birch, in my opinion, is one of the best trees you can have in your area to start a fire with, just because the bark contains a lot of natural oils. Now I can't tell you what oils they are exactly, but for some reason they are very flammable, just like pine resin, for example. And a lot of the trees, they actually have oils or sap which can be used for a lot of different purposes. Some are medicinal, some are flammable, and if you know your way around the different trees, you can actually use them to your advantage very good. And birch is one of those trees where you can collect the sap, and it's very healthy and very good for you if you drink it, but that's a totally different topic. And also the bark is very good for starting a fire. In my opinion, one of the best tinder sources you can find naturally in the woods. This certain branch has broken off a tree that is just standing over there, and it's very rotten. You can see that I can just pull this wood out of the tree, and it's just soaked and very wet, and it has decayed quite badly. Now the best way to collect this is actually from trees like this, trees that have fallen, trees that have died, just because they're very easy to reach, they're on the ground, and also you do not have to harm any living trees. If you can't find dead ones, I would suggest going for the younger birch bark trees, just because the bark has not become hard yet. It's very easy to work with, it's very easy to actually cut off the tree and use for igniting a fire. With the older ones, the problem that you will have is that the bark gets very hard and actually becomes almost like shingles on a house, and they're very hard to break off and very hard to process, because the bark that you want to use for starting a fire and that contains the oils is almost gone. You can see the white color, but it's very hard underneath. I'm not sure what the technical word is for this, but maybe someone in the comments can say that. But anyway, you want to look for the soft stuff, and I'm gonna get the camera up here in a second, and then I show you what the best parts of this tree are to actually use for starting a fire with. And then we're gonna go up to a tree stump over here, and I'm gonna show you how good this actually works. And I didn't believe it myself before I didn't try it, and it has been a long time ago. It has been, fooling around in the woods as kids, watching survival shows on television, and you see them strike a spark in a pile of birch bark, and it just goes up in flames, and then you try it yourself and it works, and you're actually fascinated of how easy this actually is. So I'm gonna get the camera over here, focus this on the tree, and then we're gonna collect some of this birch bark. Okay, the best way to collect this is with a knife, and you want to look for the parts of the tree that are a flat surface. You have these now I'm getting my English all messed up, but anyway, you want to look out for the flat surfaces in between, because here you can actually scrape the bark to create more surface area, and I'm going to show you this in a second. But the best way to collect this, I feel like I want to have this piece right here. So what you do is you just take your knife and you make an incision, and you pretty much just cut this like you would any other material, just like you would cut, cotton or whatever, some form of fabric, and you peel this off. Okay. Now you can see that underneath it's very rotten and actually wet. It's decayed very badly, but the surface is still dry and usable. Now I want to collect some more of this, so I'm going to take this piece, and you can see that this is, I can stick my knife in here, you know, very deep, just because it is rotten. But you just want to collect some more of this, and you can just peel that off. You can see how big the pieces actually are that come off, and they're very, very damp underneath, like I said. But you want to work with what you have on top. So this is very good to use. And then there's a piece here that's actually not really part of the tree anymore. And I want to go up to the stump and actually show you how to prepare this and actually get a fire started. So stay with me, guys. Okay, so now that we have collected our birch bark, I set most of this aside, but we want to prepare this to be started or to be used in a fire. Now you want to look for the pieces that are actually very dry or drier than the rest to maybe be used and prepared by hand. Now the best way you can do this, you just pull this into little strips, and once you have done that, you can set them aside, because they're going to be pretty much, after you have achieved ignition, they're going to be the second layer of tinder material that you're going to put in your fire, just to build it into a bigger flame. Okay, so you just peel this into strips, maybe cut it in half. Okay, so you want to prepare this. Cut this in half and then set this aside. Now the birch bark that you want to achieve first ignition with is going to be scraped. Obviously scraping can be done with a lot of different tools. I use the back of my knife with this. The best is obviously a very sharp 90-degree spine. If you don't have that on your knife, it's going to be very hard for you to actually be successful at doing this. So you might want to consider using a different tool, or a sharp rock, for example, which obviously is also considered a primitive tool. You want to prevent yourself from using your blade, because the blade is going to get dull unnecessarily by using it as a scraping implement rather than a cutting implement. So you want to either use the back of your knife or find something else, okay? If you have to, you can use the blade, but then you're going to resharpen, and it's going to take you more time than to find, for example, a suitable rock. But anyway, you want to have this laid out on a flat surface, and what you want to do is you want to get whatever tool you're using, and you want to start scraping the birch bark. And what's going to happen eventually is you're going to create fine shavings that you scrape off the birch bark. And because you create more surface area, you create finer shavings, you're going to be able to ignite those with just one spark. And this is one of those tinders where I'm very, very confident of saying I can hit this first time, okay? So you want to keep scraping and just create like this little dust and shavings that you see here. I'm gonna get this other piece of birch bark and just transfer it over so it doesn't lay on the wet log that I'm doing this on. And you want to just keep doing this until you feel comfortable you have enough tinder collected or prepared where you will have a suitable flame for at least a few seconds, because then you want to take all this stuff and throw it on top, and that's obviously going to ignite very easily as well, but you want to make sure that you have enough time to actually build up your flame. So I'm going to collect a bit more of this, Just keep scraping, and once you get like the first line of scrape in, you can actually try to pull this off, and you can see that it pulls off these little shavings, and you set them aside. And this, hope you can see this, is not a whole bunch of birch bark that I've just scraped, but I'm comfortable with this amount to ignite and then to put in all these strips of birch bark. So what I'm gonna do, obviously you wouldn't really want to do this if it would be a fire that you build up to be used, but for demonstrational purposes I'm gonna transfer the birch bark onto the log, which is wet, and you're never really supposed to do this, but what would happen if I would do this on the birch bark would be that because of the heat it would curl up and it would prevent a stable fire platform. Okay, so you don't really want to do this on birch bark because it gets all crumbled up. You're not really able to put your kindling on and everything. So I'm going to put this aside, and you can see that this amount of birch bark that I have is not a lot. I'm going to prepare get my other birch bark ready, and then I'm going to also get my kindling into reach, which is just a bunch of dry twigs. I'm going to set them aside as well. And then I'm going to get my fire steel. And you strike a spark into this. The best way to do this is actually pin this down a bit so you know that the sparks are going to hit, and then you strike a spark. One spark, and now it goes off. And you can see how well that actually burns. And now you want to build this up with the other birch bark and then pretty much throw your kindling over top. You don't want to necessarily throw this on top without some form of strategy. You want to let the fire breathe and then spread out the kindling so that it takes light. Alright, but this pretty much is fire with birch bark. Okay, and you can see it's almost always fascinating, and you should really try this yourself, because it's such a great feeling that a tinder collected from a dead tree that you think is rotten and not really supposed to be used in a fire. You can get so much joy out of this, and can light this with just a fire steel. And you can see I didn't have to put any effort into this. It burns on its own. And now I will be able to put on bigger kindling and fuel and actually have a fire that is ready to be cooked on, ready to be, you know, sit in front of, you know, get warm, get comfortable, use it for whatever you want to do. And that's all there is to it. So I'll be back soon with another video. Hope you enjoyed this little demonstration, and like and comment below, and until then, stay safe out there, guys.